Hello and welcome to the Anomaly Project, The Agenda, the show where we look ahead to our upcoming episode. I'm Marcus Lowth, and joining me as he does every week is Steve Mera. Now, Steve, this week, this is a guest I've been looking forward to for a fair few weeks now. We're going to be speaking to Jessica Jones, all about Bigfoot, cryptids. It's going to be fascinating.
I love this subject. I do. I mean, it's just not talked enough, to be honest with you. But I do like it when people have put the time in the research in to start connecting the dots. And Jessica, she's operating in circles that I'm aware of, and her research is absolutely cutting edge,
Mm.
and she's pushing boundaries really, and gaining new data. And it's all about the data at the end of the day. But you know what? When people start connecting the dots and start seeing connections between various different phenomena, that's when it starts to get really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, I mean, Jessica, she has put the work in. She's kind of come out of nowhere to a lot of people, but that's because there's like years worth of work gone in before she's even come out and spoke. But I mean, yeah, what I like about Jessica is that she's not just focused on Bigfoot or on cryptids in general. She like ourselves, like other researchers, she can see connections between all this
Oh
stuff.
yeah, there's
You need
there's
to speak to her about that.
definitely a supernatural, spiritual, paranormal aspect to some of this phenomena, if not all of it. I mean, when you start to study it,
Mm.
you go beyond the experience to the mechanism, and you start looking at the mechanism, and that is when the clues start to come up. You go, hang on a second, what's going on here? And then because initially, I've traveled the world and I've talked to Bigfoot guys, some of them very hard hitting Bigfoot teams, where
Mm.
they were trying to convince me that this is just an elusive creature, a hyper elusive creature that could be existing out there. Bit like the panda bear, really, because when they first discovered the panda bear, they thought, wow, what is this? Never seen one before.
Mm.
We must go and try and find out where they're coming from or where did he live and that. It took 60 years to find the next panda bear. Can you believe that? 60 years. And it's not because they're super elusive, it's the terrain. It's just that where they are was just almost impossible to get man in there because they're not exactly hyper elusive. They're black and white and live in a forest of green. They move very slowly, only kind of eat mostly, one type of food.
Mm.
It's just the fact that there's lots of areas out there which a creature could lose itself for almost forever and
Yeah.
purely just by chance come across one day. So they would, yeah, and I accepted that fact. I said, okay, yeah, they're definitely hyper elusive then. They're just living out in the places where we don't go. But then, as time changed, you start to see, well, hang on, they're coming into the urban incidents as well. They're not
Mm.
just out in the middle of nowhere.
Mm.
Sometimes they're in small villages and towns and military bases, should I say. So I'm thinking to myself, nope, nope, there's a bit more to it than this. And I think over a period of time, some of those Bigfoot guys of
Mm.
hard-hitting, elusive creatures sort of thing, I've started to transition a little bit over
Yeah.
to the possibilities that we're not just dealing with just a real elusive creature, but there's something a little bit untoward, a bit unusual about the things that I've been experiencing with these as well.
Yeah, no, I mean absolutely. There's definitely like an X factor, if for want of a better phrase, about Bigfoot. I mean,
Yeah.
one thing I'd like to get Jessica's thoughts on, I would imagine she'll have made such connections because, like you say, she's very thorough and extensive in her research. We all know there's connections between UFO hotspots and Bigfoot hotspots, and when there's UFO waves, it reports a Bigfoot increase. That's been documented as recently, I think, in 2008, the Bucks County UFO wave where Bigfoot reports went up. But what I'd really love to get thoughts on is this: there appears to be a connection between, the disappearances in national parks, where there's
Mm.
cluster spots of disappearances, and there's these same locations are also Bigfoot hotspots. Now, off the back of that, there's been many cases, some back in the early 1900s, one as recently as 2019, where children have gone missing and they have fortunately enough returned. Now, not only have they been found in locations that have been searched several times,
Yeah.
but they then go on to say, some of them at least, that the most recent one, he basically said a bear looked after me and the bear guided me home. And that's been said on several, I mean, Polari basically
Yeah.
documented several of these.
Yeah.
What I also find is interesting off the back of that is that a lot of these encounters, whether these children go missing or they are returned, or, or they never come back or they're returned, is a lot of them are picking berries at the time. And I have
It's true,
no idea
actually. Yeah.
what that is, but it's something.
Yeah, I mean, looking at statistics from that work, because I've looked into I've talked with David a few times,
Yeah.
David Pilares and his work, and we initially talked with him because our research crossed over in regarding magnetic anomalies,
Yeah.
and those are those locations which are strangely associated with what might refer to as high strangeness locations, where you've got UFOs, you've got paranormal, you've got balls of light, you've got cryptids,
Mm.
you've got this cocktail phenomena. But I'm asking the questions. Well, why are they in certain like national parks, regions where the footprint of humanity is low? And everything was pointing to, well, the phenomena can go about its agenda with the lowest recognition,
Mm.
which
Mm.
it really can.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it creeps up on people and encompasses them within seconds. It seems to be on some of these cases that
Mm.
they're literally 1 second they're there, the
Oh,
next
yeah.
second they're gone.
Literally. Quite literally. Yeah.
And to the point where you should really start thinking about tethering yourselves to each other. And I'm being absolutely
Oh, yeah.
serious here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now,
No.
I've been in some of these locations and I've witnessed phenomena firsthand, and it's like it's bearing down on you.
Mm.
And these places do exist, absolutely, and we've witnessed phenomena, but it's strange because it's like the local community is like very, very low. There's hardly any people.
Mm.
And those people that do or might know about it dismiss it as, oh, well, yeah, it's just one of those strange things that happens. We accept it. Yes, it's real, but we don't go around talking about it much. And
Yeah.
that's what's really, really strange. And it is a bit concerning because you worry about these incidents. You think, okay, you're out there in the middle of nowhere.
Mm.
What are you going to experience? What can happen? And I think the worst scenario is disappearances because we just really don't know what the hell's happening.
Mm.
Sometimes there's some very bad things that it seems lead concluded from these things. Police authorities in national parks don't want to talk about it. They're
Yeah. Yeah.
steering around it, you know, and and the weather alterations that come in. Now, look, I understand that we have the technology for weather
Oh,
alteration.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
obvious, actually, because France, a government document from France listed it. It was illegal to alter the weather. And I'm thinking, well, if it's illegal, they must be able to do it. So this can go on, but it's more than that. It's like
Mm.
there's
Yeah.
like a systematic cover of evidence, gets rid of footprints, can't find individuals or whatever. And it's just weird weather phenomena coming in right after those incidents. So again, it puts you into a bracket of the
Mm.
strange and the profound of high strangeness, where you can't really put your finger on it, but something seemingly regarding the reality or whatever is being manipulated or somehow, and it's in favor of the phenomena.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say there about, how, these creatures seemingly have a way of almost like producing missing time and things of that nature. It reminds me,
Mm.
when I was younger, basically, and I was telling a researcher this, I'll just quickly go through this and then I'll let you know what this guy said because it relates to what we're saying. When I was a kid, I don't know, 6 or 7, and it had been snowing, but it wasn't snowing when me and my mother were returning home. It was getting dark, and basically, can I play outside in the snow with my friends? Yeah, you can, as long as you're back by X amount of time. So we were on the back of the houses. It was quiet. We could see the houses, but we were kind of away from everybody. While we were asking around and playing, this snowstorm came out from nowhere, just blizzard. And I remember looking up at the snowflakes, just captivated by them. And the next thing I knew, everybody had gone home. There was nobody there. I was just there by myself, and I was actually about 10 minutes later than I should have been home. So I've thought about this on and off over the years, and I just thought maybe I just kind of put myself in some bizarre trance or whatever, and everyone just buggered off. At first, I thought my friends would be hiding behind a
Strange.
wall. When I spoke to a researcher about this to do with the crossover projects that I'm working on, and he was saying, what that could be? He was speaking to a witness who they said they'd encountered a Bigfoot out in Lincolnshire somewhere, of all places. And he said his determination after speaking to them was that this Bigfoot creature put him in some kind of trance because
Mm.
he was saying he was looking, all the last thing he could remember was looking at a tree. Couldn't remember why he was looking at it, but he remembered looking at this tree. And the next thing he came to and several hours had gone. That area is known, apparently, according to my friend's research, for Bigfoot encounters. And he was saying it was his
Ah,
belief that the Bigfoot had put this guy in a trance. And that's why. So, and he was saying that's what could have happened to yourself. Who knows what? I don't know. But what I'm getting at, I suppose, is maybe that is why these people often see Bigfoot creatures there one minute and they're gone the next. Or, like you say, they have missing time. Maybe these creatures are more in tune with abilities that we just don't know they have.
there is a, yeah, I mean, there's so many aspects of it. It just kind of doesn't fit into a normal I've experienced a creature.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I mean, and many people that watch or such as to say report seeing a Bigfoot or even other creatures like dogmen and other things like that, when they've seen them running across the land,
Hmm.
they've explained it in a sense where they're running faster than they should be able to clear the land. In other words,
Yeah.
their stride is larger than it should be. I might actually not even be in physical contact with the ground in some cases. It should have stumbled, fall because of the terrain, these large rocks, these water,
Yeah.
these also, and they didn't. It was just a very swift movement, which again, it doesn't add up. Some things just don't add up. And then you've got your glowing red eyes. I
Hmm.
mean, it's about 70-80% of these things are said to have, with cryptids, with red internal glowing eyes. I'm not talking about reflective
Yeah, yeah.
eyes in light.
Hmm.
I'm talking internally lit eyes. Now, if you look into other aspects of phenomena, we're going to find things within the supernatural realm, the spiritual, the paranormal, the even the demological realm,
Hmm.
where this internal lit red eyes seems to be, and jinn and other things.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
think to yourself, why would they have internal red glowing eyes? As a predator, that'd be a nightmare.
Hmm.
How
Hmm.
do you expect to catch your prey when the prey can clearly see your red glowing eyes staring at them?
I mean,
Doesn't make sense.
it's interesting that because what it makes me think there is, like you say, there's loads of cases of Bigfoot, for example, where the witnesses say, yeah, they had glowing red eyes. Off the back of that, there's loads of cases where there isn't. I mean,
Yeah, there
people have
isn't.
stared really closely into Bigfoot. There's reports of people staring closely into Bigfoot's eyes and saying they can recognize intelligence and emotion
Yeah,
and all of
yeah.
those things. So what that kind of leads me to think is that Bigfoot as a flesh and blood creature, even if it manifests here and then disappears, is very real as a Bigfoot, and that this phenomena, whatever it is replicating
Well, yeah,
best
with
it
two
can
different things. Yeah.
these creatures. But it obviously, I mean, I'm thinking just on the fly here, but obviously that would appear then that it cannot do anything about these glowing eyes. I mean, so
Well, yeah, yeah. The red glowing eyes might be the indicative of it's a manifestation of that phenomena,
yeah,
as opposed from it is that phenomena.
possibly,
And that might clearly be it. Or there's transitional changes that's happening between these
yes, could
creatures
be.
that some of them are more fully in bonded with reality,
Hmm. Hmm.
and some aren't. Some are drifting in that
Yeah, yeah.
reality between ours and theirs, where they have the red glowing eyes and they're not quite formed, or they have that supernatural aspect, and then suddenly they can be so grounded to the fact that they look so physical and act so physical that they are, as we would perceive them to be, absolutely real.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think on the other side of that as well, I think it's interesting to mention the Yeti because, there's a big debate about Bigfoot, about whether it's supernatural or real. But the Yeti, it seems to be that more researchers than not separated, although they're obviously the similar creatures, that the Yeti, the Siberian,
Mm.
Himalayan Bigfoot, if you like, would suggest to be more flesh and blood because
Yeah,
there are more encounters where people have been attacked. So maybe you're right. Maybe there are different creatures,
well,
but
yeah,
some are
there's
more
those.
evolved or some are grounded, and
Yeah,
so
it's
it
the
just
Yeti.
opens up the mystery
Yeah.
even more.
The abominable snowman, Skipton's or Shipton's photographs, of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
prints over the Himalayas. And any biologist will say, well, that they're not living up there, but they're tracking over the mountains from one valley to the other because
mm,
they're following the food source.
yeah,
Animals like that, you've got to follow, well, what you don't follow the animal, you follow the food source. It's got to survive. It's got to
yeah.
be able to eating something. Large animals eat a lot, so maybe that might be the situation. But you know, when we say, well, okay, so it's real then, or some of these things are real, but it's like that whole thing. What is real? And is it real
Mm,
all the
mm.
time?
Yeah,
or is it
yeah.
real when it chooses to be real? It's just so profound, and we can talk about these when we talk about cryptids cover so many things. The owl man, the moth man, the merman. Actually, I've talked to people that
Oh
claim
yeah,
that actually
yeah.
even seen mermen. It's crazy. So you think to yourself, well, okay, they are seemingly real when they want to be because
Mm,
they've left marks on cars when they've attacked them. There was, I believe, there were markings from the Mothman when it attacked a car with people in it.
yeah,
Red glowing eyes, of course, but it had physicality to it because it left marks behind, and prints and things that are always cast. I have heard, though, some interesting things about Bigfoot researchers going out there, finding some excellent prints in the ground, Bigfoot prints, and taking casts.
hmm,
And then they created those casts through plaster of Paris, whatever, and took them home, only to start experiencing poltergeist type
yeah,
phenomena
yeah.
in their home where they had the casts. And I thought, now that's intriguing, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. It does. It suggests a supernatural. I mean, I say if it's Bigfoot, then that ought that straight away makes sense, as I say, because I think most people accept there is a supernatural quality to the Bigfoot. If it was a Yeti, then that would be really intriguing.
Mm.
But there's certainly a connection there, and as you say, I mean, I think you mentioned about different cryptids. I think it's important to mention that reptilians, for example, are often described as having red glowing eyes. Now, also
Yeah,
another trait of reptilians is they can shapeshift,
yeah.
apparently. So maybe again, that's something to keep in mind. But what I would like to get Jessica's thoughts on, though, is there's been many examples. We've shown a few videos on here before of cloaked Bigfoots. And
Yes.
when we spoke to Lon Strictly, he didn't say it was a Bigfoot, but he was certainly hunting a cryptid. And he called it the Glimmer Man. People
Yeah.
have described essentially what we saw on those videos.
Mm.
So I'd love to get thoughts on that. And are we speaking of an ability again that these creatures can have over their own bodies, or are we talking about a device? And does that make them more intelligent than we might imagine, more
Well, I mean,
sophisticated?
we look at the all the animals and creatures on planet Earth, and these, and we look at which one has the most incredible capabilities of being able to camouflage itself is the octopus.
Mm-hmm.
The octopus can camouflage itself against any background where you can see it though. You can see it, but you don't recognize it because it's the same color as the background.
Mm-hmm.
We're not actually looking at that though in these cases. We are talking that a bit like the Predator film. I mean, I
Yeah,
hate to say it because
yeah,
I hate drawing from sci-fi films, but Predator type film, that where they're cloaked, and it's only because when they move, you can
yeah,
see a shimmer that's like bending light around them. And now I do know that we do have some wonderful technologies now that can bend light around them, and is it something which is technological? Well, these creatures, when they are seen, they just seem to be creatures, not wearing equipment or
mm,
holding some form of tech or anything like that. So that's what makes it so profound. It's like they can just blink out. A bit like paranormal phenomena, you can sometimes they're there, but you might not be able to see them. But you can. I mean, I've done an investigation where people went out illegally fishing at reservoirs in the
mm,
middle of the night, and they got pursued by something, but it was literally about 4 feet away from them. They could hear this thing breathing, they could see the bush moving in front of them, and
yeah,
yet it was invisible to the naked eye. And it petrified them so much they never ever went back there to that location. And they knew that location like the back of their hand. Walker Woods Reservoir it was. And they would never return. They were absolutely frozen in fear. And they didn't think it was some type of, at first, some type of big creature like a Bigfoot or anything like that,
yeah,
or even a dogman or whatever. They thought they were being pursued by something quite evil and demonic. But it was only because, in hindsight, afterwards, they started realizing, yeah, we could tell that this thing was big, at least heavy, big.
yeah, yeah,
It's breathing. When it walked, you could hear the thud. It was heavy.
yeah,
So it made them think maybe it was some type of strange sort of creature like a Bigfoot or whatever. A bit like what we have at Cannock Chase in Staffordshire in the UK
yeah,
reported.
yeah.
There's been things there like that reported.
Oh yeah.
But then we've had paranormal and we've had UFOs there as well. So it's again, these areas of high strangeness seem to be associated with these type of beings, don't they?
Yeah, I think what what I think of there when you were speaking there is Ben McDoo, I think, in Scotland, in the Cairngorms in
Yes.
Scotland. Now, first of all, there's lots of electromagnetic energies and
Hmm.
anomalies there. There are people who, normal people, for want of a better phrase, and psychics and mediums who have immediately picked up on that energy, and they have said, they suddenly feel overwhelming senses of grief and depression. But most interesting of all, there's several accounts, and these go across the decades, of people, one, experiencing missing time, and within that,
Mm.
knowing somebody is following them. And like you say, it's a heavy creature, long strides. On the rare occasions where people have viewed it, they've just only briefly, they've said it looked very much like a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So, it makes me think, is this some kind of energy? And, I was speaking to somebody recently, only a few days ago, and they were telling me about a paper that they had read, and they were saying that what if these creatures, whatever they are, what if they're hiding within the atoms? They can vibrate and they can adjust their frequency to actually exist within the atoms, and that could be bending
Yeah.
of light. That could be what that is. It just.
Well, I mean, consistently over the years throughout the UK, if you wanted to sort of look at all the reports and say, okay, well, this is some evidence here, there can't just be one, two, three, four of these things. There has to be communities. For the
Mm,
amount of sightings over the years, there'd have to be communities of these things. In the UK, and to be honest with you, what you only travel 53 miles, you're at the coast, pretty much most directions in the UK. We're not very big. We're not like a national park,
mm-hmm.
but don't get me wrong, there are areas of ground
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff.
for
But
sure.
where would they be? And it's not just a matter of where they're living, because people have had to put forward, oh, they must all be living underground. Well, what are they eating then? Because communities of these things and the big,
Mm-hmm.
you find loads of evidence to support. Yes, there's lots of things. Sheeps are going missing, and cows, and or they've been killed, and this, that, and the other, and there'd be lots of evidence of that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
more sightings than we would expect to have. Some of these things have even turned up in, believe it or not, in the UK, in claimed to have been in urban areas.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What's one doing in the middle of a town?
No, you're right. I
Doesn't
mean,
make any sense, does
there
it?
was one recently in Yorkshire where it was just a farm, basically, and he didn't outright say Bigfoot, but he was basically describing this guy, and he made the newspapers too. Like a tall, hairy figure. And it wasn't like in the city, but he certainly wasn't in the middle of nowhere, and it was
No,
just, But what I'm kind of thinking is, like you say, I mean, for the amount of sightings and there would be evidence, so that just leads me to believe increasingly that Bigfoot, particularly, are some kind of supernatural entity that can disappear and reappear at will. Now, whether that's through portals, whether they exist in another frequency, another dimension, whether they're extraterrestrials, however you want to define that, who knows? But there's certainly something very strange to Bigfoot and cryptid creatures in general.
there
Very,
really is. I
very
mean,
strange.
yeah. I mean, I've been Scotching. I've been to Arkansas in the middle of
Mm,
Bigfoot land there. You know, and yeah, it's interesting, and it is quite unnerving actually, because to know that you might be dealing with some type of seems to be a real creature at some
yeah.
point, and what could happen because we're insignificant in size and strength to these things, and it is can be probably out of all the things that you must have some nerve for, is being in the forest in the middle of the night, thinking that one of these things is around and watching you. That is probably more unnerving than dealing with paranormal phenomena in somebody's home or many other incidents. So yeah, I can totally get, hats off to these people that do that. It really does take something. But at the same time, I mean, I've never seen a Bigfoot,
Mm,
but I have experienced a dogman once when I was young. I'm not going to go into in great detail, but it was a holiday in Derbyshire and something was outside the caravan. I was only young, looked out the window and saw this thing, which apparently startled it with me going like this,
right.
and snarled at me. And it was an upright walking dog. I don't, and I'll be honest, I mean, I absolutely freaked. I
Yeah, I can
really
imagine.
did. But I don't know what that was. But I was in Derbyshire in the UK on a small caravan site with many of us on there, only about five caravans. But
Right.
in the middle of the night, I heard something out there and opened the curtain and hey presto, So I don't know, but nothing will surprise me anymore. I've seen a banshee, I've seen many other little strange things, and with people. So I
Yeah,
know I'm
yeah.
not going mad. Once that happens, you kind of go, do you know what? Anything goes. And at that time, it's real. It was real
Yeah.
to me. It was real to others that are with me. So what are these things? Just a big
Well,
mystery, I
it
suppose.
really is. That's what keeps us. That's what keeps us all fascinated. So, I mean, Steve, I'm looking forward to this week's show. I
I
can't wait
am.
to speak with Jessica. So, and thank you very much for joining me as always, Steve.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
I likewise, and thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you tune in, and you can see that show our chat with Jessica Jones. That'll be on Friday, the 12th of September at 9 p.m. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe to our channel, check us out on social media, and check out the Anomaly Project Podcast.com for further articles, news, and information. Until next time, goodbye and take care.